Welcome to One Interview, One World. This is Lainey Kay, and this is a show about interviewing people from all walks of life because everyone has a story to share and we can all learn from each other. I hope you enjoy listening. Today I am with Terry Tucker, who has been an NCAA Division I college basketball player, a Citadel cadet, a marketing executive, a hospital administrator, an undercover narcotics investigator, a SWAT team hostage negotiator, a high school basketball coach, a business owner, a motivational speaker, an author, and most recently, a cancer warrior. He is the author of Sustainable Excellence, 10 Principles to Living Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life. Terry and his wife have lived all over the United States and currently reside in Colorado with their daughter and Wheaton Terrier, Maggie. In 2019, Terry started the website Motivational Check to help others find and lead their uncommon and extraordinary lives. So thank you, Terry, so much for being here today.
Well, thanks for having me, Lainey. I listened to you. One of these days, I'll figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up. You know?
I love it because you're probably more along the lines of the new generation that will have many careers during their lifetime instead of one or two. So I think it's fantastic.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. I would love to know a little bit about you growing up and where did you grow up and what were you like or what were your aspirations?
Sure. So I grew up, I'm the oldest of three boys and we all grew up in Chicago. And you can't tell this from my voice, but I'm 6'8" tall and played college basketball at the Citadel down in Charleston, South Carolina. I have my youngest brother is 6'7" and was a pitcher for the University of Notre Dame. And then my middle brother is 6'6" and was drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers in the National Basketball Association. And then my dad was 6'5". So if you sat behind our family in church growing up, there wasn't a prayer's chance you were going to see anything that was going on whatsoever. But, you know, our 5'8" mother was kind of it didn't matter how big, strong, or tough we were. 5'8" mom, whatever mom said, that's the way it went. So after I graduated from the Citadel, I moved home to find a job. This was unfortunately long before the internet was available. Fortunately, I was able to find that first job. It was in the marketing department at the corporate headquarters of Wendy's International, the hamburger chain. But unfortunately, I ended up living with my parents for the next 3.5 years as I helped my mom care for my father and my grandmother, who were both dying of different forms of cancer. I won't go into my professional life because you pretty much covered that. But my wife and I have been married for 27 years, and our only child, a daughter, is a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy and is a lieutenant in the newly created Space Force. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Very, very cool. Well, when you were young, what did you want to be?
I wanted to be a policeman. My grandfather was a Chicago policeman from 1924 to 1954. And I didn't really know him very well. He died when I was 6 or 7 years old. But my grandmother, his wife, lived until I was in college. So I got to hear kind of all the stories of, what it was like to be a policeman in Chicago during the Prohibition days, during the gangs and Al Capone and all those kind of things. And he was actually shot in the line of duty with his own gun. It wasn't a serious injury. He was shot in the ankle. But my dad always remembered the stories my grandmother told about the knock on the door of Mrs. Tucker, please grab your son. Your husband's been shot and come with us. So my dad had my whole life planned out. You know, you're going to go to college, you're going to major in business, and then you're going to, get a job in business and get married and have 2.4 kids. And he had my whole life planned out, but that was the life that he wanted me to lead. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't the life that I wanted to lead. Fortunately for me, I finally did that, but I didn't want to upset him. I mean, he loved me. He didn't do anything out of malice. He did it more because he wanted me to have a safe and secure life. But that wasn't the life that I was born to do. But I did, I was in business for the job at Wendy's. And then after that, I was a hospital administrator because I didn't want to upset him because he was dying of cancer at that time. So I waited until he passed away. And then I pursued my dream. But I was a 37-year-old rookie police officer, which back then was kind of old to be running around chasing bad guys.
Okay, so that was your passion. You really wanted to do that and follow in your grandfather's footsteps, but your dad didn't want anything like that for you. Okay.
No, no, not at all. And I always tell, especially young people now, if you have a passion in your heart for something and it scares you, go ahead and do it. Because at the end of your life, the things you're going to regret are not going to be the things that you did. They're going to be the things that you didn't do. And by that time, it's going to be too late to go back and do them.
That's the most beautiful advice, and we need to instill that when they're really little and let kids follow their passions. Yeah, I think that it is detrimental, and like you say, it was coming from kindness, but it didn't make you happy, so it kind of limited you.
It did. I wasn't looking forward to getting up in the morning and going to work and things like that. And, once I finally found that passion, I found the reason that I was put on this earth, I couldn't wait to get up and go to work in the morning and stuff like that. And I don't mean that people's, passion or their purpose has to be a job. It doesn't. I mean, you could have a job that, pays the bills, but your passion is maybe writing or volunteer work or whatever it is. It doesn't necessarily have to be your job.
I agree with that one too. Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about being a rookie and what was that like for you at that age? But you know what? There's people doing that now. So I think that's really good information.
I think it was beneficial. Believe it or not, I was not the oldest person in my police academy class. There were two individuals that had retired from the military that were in their 40s that wanted a second career and became policemen. And we even had a man in his 50s who was an insurance adjuster at one point in time and decided he wanted to get in law enforcement. So I wasn't the oldest, but I'll tell you, I took a lot of Tylenol during those days with learning to do that kind of stuff. So it was exciting, but in a lot of ways, it was kind of nice because I had some life experience, and because I had some life experience, I was able to talk to people of a lot of different backgrounds, which made being a rookie police officer, and I ran a beat for about 5 years. It made it a lot easier because I was older and I had some life experience, and I was able to talk to people from all different kinds of, walks of life. So that part was good, and then I transferred to the drug unit, did that for about 4.5 years. And then was also a SWAT team hostage negotiator. And again, a lot of that was I had some experience, so I was able to talk to different people who were in crisis. So in a lot of ways, yeah, it was difficult physically on my body, but from an emotional point of view or from the ability to talk with people, it was definitely something that I was glad I had.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that would make more sense for people to be a little older before they go into the military or the police because you do have the life experience and, better education and all that, so you can deal with things?
I think certainly the military has a tendency to mature a lot of people that maybe aren't mature. I think from a law enforcement point of view, it doesn't necessarily, I mean, you're not in it for that. The academy is, maybe 6 months at the most. So, I mean, that's not a lot of time to mature somebody, but it certainly would help. I think if you were a little bit older, you would have more life experience. Maybe you would have more education and things like that. And it would just make it easier for you. And I get contacted from time to time from young people who are interested in that career field. And one of the things I tell them is to, put your electronic devices down and go out on the street and talk to the homeless guy. And then, kind of go up to the penthouse and talk to that guy. Because if you can talk to those two individuals, those two, which are probably, on the scale at either end, you're going to be able to talk to all these people here in the middle, people that are in crisis, people that are scared, people that just had an automobile accident who think it's the worst thing that ever happened to them. And yet, as a policeman, you're on your third accident of the day. And it's really, in the scheme of things, not that big of a deal. So, yeah, I think the older you are, the more experience you have, it just makes the job a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm. Do they help, like, the cadets learn how to, deal with the public, or that's not really what they're teaching when they're going through the academy?
I mean, you are. I mean, you're learning predominantly, laws and what the laws are and how you apply the laws, and what the different constitutional aspects are. When can you search? When can you handcuff? When can you do that kind of stuff? And then they're also teaching you the physical stuff, the defensive tactics of how to protect yourself, how to have to fight somebody off, how to do things like that. So there are scenarios that are in there. They'll put us through scenarios that are safe. You're not going to walk up to a car having never walked up to a car on a traffic stop and that. But they just don't have a lot of time to make you into a person that can talk to people. And like I said, if you're able to talk to people from all different walks of life, it makes that job a whole lot easier, not only for yourself, but for the people you're dealing with as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. But it sounds like it would be like a good thing to add to the academy to help people with the communication side, because that sounds like that's a huge part of the job.
It is. I mean, both from a verbal point of view and from a writing point of view. I mean, I've been out of it for a while, but there was kind of an old saying that you're known by your paper. In other words, you're known by the reports that you write on different crimes that you investigate and stuff like that. Because as a patrolman, you take those reports and you take whatever evidence you can collect and book in as evidence or talk to witnesses and stuff and write that down and then turn it over to an investigator. So from an investigator's point of view, the more information you can give them, the better chance they'll have of solving that crime. So yeah, written and verbal communication, very important in that job.
Mm-hmm. How did you end up going into the drug enforcement? Was that like a choice, or that was just, it was a choice?
It was. We had, there are different assignments. I was a policeman in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is a fairly large city. So there were all kinds of different, we had a traffic section, we had a motorcycle section, we had a canine officers, we had a drug unit. And it just seemed like I wanted to be part of the best. And the two best jobs on the department were being a homicide investigator and being part of the department was called Street Corner at the time. And we did, street level enforcement. We did work with the FBI. We did work with the Drug Enforcement Administration, where sometimes we would get into an investigation and it would get bigger. And so we needed more resources and things like that. But it was just something that I applied for. And, I thought, boy, I'm an old guy. I'm an old guy and I'm 6'8". And I always get the question, how are you able to buy drugs? And the answer to that question is the drug industry, and it is definitely an industry, is motivated by greed. And if you have money, chances are you're going to get somebody to sell you drugs. And then, we would sell and then do what we call buy busts. And then we'd arrest the person, bust them, take them to jail, and then move on to somebody else.
Yeah, you would. Now, when you reminded me how tall you were, you would definitely stand out.
Yeah, I talk about some of the funny things I did. One of my old partners who was on the day shift, I worked the night shift. She called and she said, "Hey, we have these students coming down from Dayton. There were about 5 of them, and they had mushrooms to sell because they wanted to get money to party in Cincinnati. Will you buy from them?" And so I posed as a professor of metallurgy. I didn't know anything about metal or anything like that, but I posed as a professor of metallurgy and met them in a park and bought the mushrooms from them for $200. And, they got back in their car and drove about 50 feet. And then all of a sudden, about 5 marked cars ruined their day. So they partied in the Hamilton County Justice Center instead of in some bar in Cincinnati.
Oh my goodness. And then how did it evolve to you being in a hostage negotiator?
So SWAT was kind of a separate situation. We did not have a full-time SWAT team. So again, I'm going to date myself a little bit. We carried pagers, and you would get on the team, and then when you were needed, your pager would go off, and you would do it that way. So again, wanting to be part of the best, and SWAT was certainly, we sort of used to joke that when the public needs help, they call 911. When the police need help, they call SWAT. And in a lot of ways, that was true. But we had great cops and the street level officers did a super job. But there were just times where you needed a little bit more maybe it was firepower, maybe it was just more people involved and stuff. And so I applied for that as well, and had to go through a physical fitness test, a psychological test, interviews and things like that, and eventually got on the team, and then quickly realized I knew nothing about negotiating. And because I remember my first scenario was negotiating, and we did a lot of practice stuff. So there was a hostage and somebody who had taken them hostage in a room, and we were negotiating through a door, and the hostage was screaming the entire time. And I spent all my time focusing on the hostage, and learned later, it's like, and this is going to sound kind of cruel in a way, but you sort of keep the hostage out of it. They can scream all they want, but you're dealing with the hostage taker, and that's what you need to concentrate on. And I totally blew it my first scenario, but that's why we trained. We trained every month. We trained with a psychologist. We went through different scenarios. What would we do? How would we work? And things like that. So when it came time to do the real thing, we were pretty well prepared.
Wow, that's a crazy job. So all of that being, in the police force, was that a very stressful job?
It was. I'm not going to say it was easy. I mean, I had people that I worked with that have committed suicide, that were turned to alcohol and drugs and things like that. I kind of got through law enforcement, I think, the same way I've gotten through these last 9 years of cancer, with what I call the 3 F's: faith, family, and friends. And, I was never one after a shift to, let's go out to the bar and have a drink and stuff like that. I wanted to go home. I wanted to spend time with my family and stuff like that. And I'm not a drinker. I'm certainly not one now, being on all these cancer drugs, but it was just not something that I was interested in. And maybe that was because I was older and because I understood what was really important in life. And, when I hit the garage and, the job stopped, and I was, I worked with people that had been a cop for 35 years and their identity was tied to their badge and their gun. And that was not me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I loved doing what I was doing. I think it was my passion. I think it was my purpose, but it wasn't who I was. I was certainly able, as you mentioned, to do other things as well. So yeah, it was stressful. I mean, you see a lot of things that people shouldn't see, and you see a lot of helplessness and hopelessness. And you sort of got to, I'm not saying we don't have compassion for people. We certainly do, but you just have to realize that, sometimes you're called to deal with something that may have been festering for, 10, 20 years, and you're supposed to show up in 20 minutes and fix it. That's just not realistic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. I know in some countries, they make you be in the police force, like that's mandatory, or you're in the military and that's mandatory. Do you think people would look at the police different, or do you think that would help like our United States if everybody had to serve as a policeman for part of their life?
No, I think like anything else, if you force people to do something that they don't have a passion for, they're not interested in, they're not going to do a good job at it. So, I mean, I think it's important. And I always tell people, I said, if you look at policemen today, and I always look at 3 things when I tell this to people. Number 1, a policeman makes less money than a plumber. Number 2, nobody wants the police there. And number 3, everybody lies to you. So imagine if you went to work every day and you made less money than a plumber, nobody at your job wanted you there, and when you were there, everybody lied to you. How long would you stay in that job? Probably not very long. But that's what the police deal with every single day. It's never a good thing when the police are there. I mean, it's always a good thing when the firemen show up. Everybody loves a fireman, but from a police point, you're pulling them over to give them a ticket, or maybe you're even knocking on their door to tell them, you need to call the hospital, your grandmother passed away or something like that. It's never positive when the police are there. And then finally, everybody lies to you because everybody wants to put their story as the one you believe, so you'll take the other person to jail. So that's the environment that the police are in. So I always look at people, it's like, you hate the police, but think about if that was your job every day, would you go to work? Would you go to work and want to make a difference? That's the only way that you're good at that job. You have to have a calling. You want to make a difference in your community and help out. And I ran an entirely black neighborhood for almost 5 years as a beat cop with my white partner. And we led our relief in almost every single category that the department looked at. I mean, we didn't have quotas, but they wanted you to kind of do something to earn your money. And yet we were never complained on. And I think a lot of that had to do with, one, we were both older. And so we were able to, when you do something to people and they don't get it, they don't understand it, they want to know, why did you pull me over? Why are you here in my house? Well, if you explain it to them, well, your car matched the description of somebody that just committed a robbery. And, we pulled you over because of that. You are not the person. Thanks for your cooperation. Well, they get that. Oh, okay. I understand that. I was driving a car that matched the description of somebody you're looking for. That's fine. But if you don't tell them that, if you don't explain things to them, they think, well, you just pulled me over because I was black. No, it's 3:00 in the morning. I have no idea what the color of the skin of the person in the car is. I can't see in your car. But no, we pulled you over for a specific reason. So a lot of it, again, goes back to being a little more mature and a little, much more able to communicate effectively with people about why you do what you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Those are all, things that most of us don't even think about. And yeah, we need to, what would you say to be more open, I guess, to a police person?
I think in a lot of ways, you can sort of talk yourself into a ticket. If we pull you over and, you're a jerk, or, in Ohio, not having insurance on your vehicle was a misdemeanor of the first degree, which was the highest misdemeanor you could have. And, if you're not, we always used to say, if we pulled you over at 3:00 in the morning and you had a valid driver's license, you weren't wanted, and you had insurance on your car, 99.9% of the time, we were not going to give you a ticket, regardless of why we pulled you over. But if you want to talk yourself into a ticket, you can certainly do that. You can call me all kinds of names and stuff like that. And, we sort of used to say the pen is mightier than the sword. Sure. Here's your $150 ticket. You talked yourself into that ticket. I'm a person just like you are. And I'm not out here to arrest everybody. I mean, part of it is we just want people to be educated. I mean, there are a lot of people we should have written tickets to that we didn't, and things like that. So I'm a person just like you. I wear a badge, and my power and authority, believe it or not, comes from you, the citizen. So if you don't like the way things are going, complain to your city councilman. If you think you were treated unfairly by a policeman, every police department has a way of making a complaint and be like, well, it's not going to do any good because it's going to be investigated by another police. Well, in a way, yes, that's true, but it will do some good. I mean, there were people that we got off the job that never should have been policemen. They did not treat people the way people should have been treated. And they were in it because they were on a power trip. I've got a gun and I've got a badge, and now I can, kick some butt here. And no, that's not why we do what we do. If I always used to tell recruits in the academy that, you're going to spend 6 months learning how to use all these tools on your belt. But if the two biggest tools, the two most important tools you bring to this job are this, your mouth, and this, your brain. And there were policemen that could take yes people and turn them into no people because they were jerks in the way they talked to them. And then there were other policemen who could take no people and turn them into yes people based on what they said and how they say it. Now, don't get me wrong. There were certainly times when, we're going to have to fight you, or we're going to have to wrestle you, or, sometimes even shoot you, depending on the situation. But that was always a last resort. You do not understand how horrible it is for a policeman to have to shoot somebody, whether they kill them or not. It is a terrible thing for them and their family. So it's not something we get up in the morning and say, oh, I think I'm going to go shoot somebody today. It's a last resort.
Yeah. Thank you for that perspective. Thank you for sharing that. Sure. So what made you change into a different career from there?
My wife. My wife is the primary breadwinner in our family, and she lost her job in Cincinnati and was not able to find another one, and we had to move. And so, unfortunately, law enforcement is pretty much state specific. So if you go through the academy in Cincinnati, you can be a policeman in Ohio anywhere you want. But if you move to, say, Texas, then you're probably going to have to go through another academy. And at my age, it wasn't something that I really wanted to do. And I had certain experiences and was able to, work, like I said, with some federal agencies and things like that. So I started a school security consulting business kind of before, it was a big thing to do. And then I helped a lot of schools in the US to improve their physical security, write their policies and procedures. And then I also started to coach basketball. I thought, well, that might be fun, and maybe I can make a difference in some young people's lives. So it was just a change. And again, it goes back to what I told you before. My identity was not tied to that gun and that badge. I mean, I think I'll always consider myself a policeman, but I'm certainly able to do other things in my life.
Mm-hmm. So did you consider that a blessing to get to be able to do something different?
I don't know if it was a blessing. I mean, I really felt my purpose was to be a police officer, and I had gotten the opportunity. I was a policeman for about 10 years. But I also, as I said before, sort of the 3 F's: faith, family, and friends. Well, the family part of that was huge. And, when we grew up as young men, my parents always you got to put your religion first and your family second. And I always remember that. And so, my wife supported me. She married me when I was a hospital administrator, suit and tie, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And, honey, I'd like to, go do this very dangerous job where I'm going to get shot at and I'm going to work nights, and, you're going to prepare a nice meal on a Sunday night, then my pager's going to go off for a SWAT call up and I've got to go. So will you support me in that? And she did. So when it was time for her to move on, it was time for me to support her and do the things that I needed to do, even if that meant leave a job that I kind of felt I had a passion for. So, yeah, I don't know if it was a blessing, but like I said, I was certainly able to do other things and do those things well, even though I wasn't a policeman anymore.
Mm-hmm. What did you end up doing then after that? I mean, the security thing and then a basketball coach.
So literally, I had a callus break open on the bottom of my foot in 2012 when I was a basketball coach. And that sort of started this 9-year odyssey of this very rare form of cancer that I have, a rare form of melanoma that appeared on the bottom of my foot. And that led to two surgeries at MD Anderson in Houston, Texas. And then I was put on a drug called Interferon. And I took a weekly interferon injection for almost 5 years. And the side effects of interferon were basically I had flu-like symptoms for 2 to 3 days every week after each injection. So imagine having the flu every week for 5 years. And that was just being put on that drug was not a cure. It was, we're going to, as my oncologist said, we're going to try to kick the can down the road in the hope that we can keep you alive long enough to have more therapies available. And she was, and they did that. But when the interferon was stopped in 2017, the disease came back. In 2018, January of 2018, I had my left foot amputated because of the disease. The disease came back again in 2019, had 2 more surgeries on my leg. And then last year, an undiagnosed tumor in my ankle grew large enough that it broke my tibia, my shin bone. And my only option, literally in the middle of this global pandemic, was to have my left leg amputated above the knee. And then I also found out I have tumors in my lungs. So really, after being a basketball coach, I haven't worked in any appreciable capacity since I developed cancer back in 2012.
It's too bad. So the melanoma, is it a rare melanoma then that you have?
It is. I mean, there's the melanoma that probably most of us think about, where we have a spot on our skin somewhere, and that gets diagnosed as melanoma. There's a rarer form, which I have, which appears on the palms of your hands or the bottom of your feet. And there's also a kind that appears in your nail beds underneath your fingernails or your toenails. And they used to lump that in with the bottom of the feet, palms of the hands kind of thing. They're now starting to think that may be its own separate form of melanoma. And then there's an even rarer form of melanoma that appears in the mucous membrane. So in your nose or your mouth or something like that, that you were like, how the heck did I get melanoma in my mouth? I mean, I wasn't tanning my tongue or anything like that, when I was a kid. I don't mean to make jokes about it, but I have plenty of jokes over the years about it. So yeah, so there's all these rare forms of a disease that you would think is, a dark spot on your skin.
Crazy. And interferon, is that a cancer treatment, or is that like an alternative?
It's definitely a cancer treatment. It's used for other things. People that have hepatitis, they will give you interferon. They'll give you a course of it. Sometimes it's 6 to 8 months of it to get rid of the hepatitis. And apparently it's fairly successful at that. When my oncologist suggested it, I talked with the grandmother of a player of mine who had hepatitis, and they gave her interferon for it. And she was like, yeah, it's kind of a nasty drug, but if you only have to be on it for 6 months or something like that, I thought, well, I can handle that. And then when my oncologist was like, well, I'd like you to be on it for 5 years if you can, I kind of looked at her like, you want me to have the flu every week for 5 years? That just seems so ridiculous, so I can't believe you're asking. And I mean, it wasn't like I just don't feel good. It was, throwing up, shakes, chills, body aches. I mean, it was a bad form of the flu. And I used to take the injection on Saturday night, and Sunday was horrible. Monday was horrible. Tuesday was kind of a wild card day. Maybe I'd feel better. Maybe I wouldn't. But then, you start feeling better Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then boom, you do it again. So
really, really tough. What is it doing? Does it kill like the cancer in your body, or it suppresses the immune system, or what?
It actually revs up your immune system, and it kills anything that doesn't belong there. So, I mean, the good part was I didn't even so much as have a cold for 5 years, because, it'll kill the flu virus. It'll kill, the cold. It'll kill cancer. It kills anything that basically doesn't belong there by revving up your immune system to say, hey, that's not good. We got to go attack that. But the side effects is that immune system ramping up gives you those flu-like symptoms.
Mm-hmm. Why did they have you stop?
Because I ended up in the intensive care unit with a fever of 108 degrees because of the toxicity to the drug. I was lucky. I ended up in the emergency room of a level 1 trauma center. And so they were kind of able to stabilize me. But my wife told me the story when they were working on me. And it was so weird because I was freezing. I was so cold that they had me wrapped up in all these warm blankets until they took my temperature. And it was 108 degrees. And then they're like, oh my God, the nurse manager pulled my wife out of the emergency room and said, which was kind of an insensitive comment, but I understand why she said it. I think to prepare my wife, she said, I've only seen 2 people with a fever this high, and neither one of them survived. So, they go from I'm freezing and I'm warm blankets to I'm buck naked, literally packed in ice and still freezing while they're trying to get this fever down so that it doesn't fry my organs and my brain and things like that. So I was, it just got to the point where the drug was just too toxic for my body.
Mm-hmm. And there isn't a lot of treatments, I take it? You're kind of limited on what?
I was at the time. I mean, after that, they put me on 2 biologic drugs that, again, did nothing to the cancer, but again, would hopefully rev up my immune system to recognize the cancer in your body and go for it. The reason the cancers kind of proliferate is that they excrete an enzyme that hides them from the body. So the immune system doesn't see them. So the idea was to kind of unmask them and then let your immune system say, oh, cancer, we're going to go ahead and fight that. That did not work for me, and it gave me a lot of side effects. So my only option at that point in time was then the amputation of my foot. Which happened in January of 2018.
Mm-hmm. Having the pandemic, did that affect your treatment?
Yeah, it did. So, right in the middle of this pandemic, I have this large tumor in my ankle that grows big enough to basically break my leg. And my only option was surgery. And, having a leg amputated is kind of a big deal. It's kind of a big surgery. And fortunately, I had a great orthopedic surgeon who did the surgery at a smaller suburban hospital that did not take COVID patients. But it was literally, my wife dropped me off at the hospital the morning of the surgery. I was the only surgery that day. My doctor had to get permission to do the surgery because they were not doing any quote unquote elective procedures. But I mean, I had a broken leg. I mean, and it wasn't something they could set and it was going to heal. It was, right. I needed this surgery. So that was pretty scary. You know, I mean, my wife and I have been married for 27 years and she was like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, just go sit in the parking lot and pray. You know, eventually when this is over, the surgeon will call you and maybe the two of you can talk and that. But I should have been in the hospital for a week. Yeah. I was only in for 48 hours. That was another criteria. My doctor's like, I only want you in for 48 and then we're getting you home, which from a therapist point of view, I had an occupational and a physical therapist, you know, they need to teach me how to now function with one leg. And they were incredibly frustrated that, you know, what do you mean we only get 48 hours? I'm like, you only have 48 hours. So, you know, if you need to be here at 9 o'clock at night and you need to teach me something, then teach me. You know, I'll do whatever you need, you know, for me to do. But yeah, the pandemic was certainly it made it much more difficult to have that surgery and to try to recover from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awful. Are you able to get around normally, or do you use a wheelchair, or how do you manage?
I have a prosthetic leg, but I predominantly get by right now with a wheelchair. The clinical trial drugs that I'm on kind of wreak havoc with my body, and it takes a while for me to kind of recover. I'm at the hospital for a week getting treatment 5 days in a row, and then I get 2 weeks off, and then we do it again. And so there's this 3-week kind of cycle. And it just leaves me exhausted. So it's very hard to go to physical therapy and learn how to walk again, because you know, basically I have, you know, part of my leg still intact, but it's part that has no function anymore. Because if you don't have a lower leg, you know, your upper leg, its job is to move your lower leg. Well, if I don't have a lower leg, it's just these muscles are all atrophying. So you learn to walk again, basically using your kind of your butt and your hip muscles to walk. And I've been to physical therapy a couple times, and it just takes a lot out of me. And at this point in time, I'm hoping for a break, but I'm not seeing a break come at any time, because when you're in a clinical trial, there's no, you know, here you do this. Oh, I don't feel like doing it this week. It's like, no, if you don't feel like doing it, you're out, you know, and because it's all about data, collecting data and things like that. So I realize I'm a guinea pig, and hopefully it's helping me. It has shrunk the tumors in my lungs by about 30%. My doctor's not talking cure, but he's certainly talking about buying me some more time. But, you know, maybe they can learn something from me that will help somebody, you know, 10 years from now when they finally synthesize this new drug. Mm-hmm. We'll see.
So it's a drug, or is it like an antibody type of thing?
It's a drug that, so I told you about interferon. There's another kind of really nasty drug called interleukin-2, mm-hmm. which if they give it to you, almost always they have to give it to you in the hospital, because it just does all kinds of crazy things to your body, your temperature and things like that. So they have to monitor you very closely. The idea behind this clinical trial drug is that it would accentuate the good things that interleukin-2 does and sort of take away a lot of the negative parts that the drug would do. Now, I react very difficultly with this drug. I shake, I throw up, I have a fever. It's really ugly, and it leaves you just physically drained. And then you go home and you come back the next morning and you do it again, you do it again, you do it again. But it's also a drug that I recover from pretty quickly. So my last treatment is on a Friday. Usually by Monday or Tuesday, I'll start feeling pretty good. My blood counts will start coming back and things like that. But it's funny, there's only 2 of us left in the trial. There were 7 that started. There's only 2 of us left. And we both have had, since the second COVID vaccine, we both had Moderna. It just seems like it's much harder on our bodies. And I don't know if there's any relation to the fact that we had the COVID vaccine, the Moderna vaccine, because we both reacted very violently to that. So it's a little more tougher these days.
I'm sorry to hear that. How long are you in the trial? Is it just indefinite, or is there a time where it ends?
Potentially it's 2 years. We're about 9 months into it. Like I said, there's two of us on it now. They have augmented mine with a new drug called Keytruda. You may have heard that being advertised on television. They also use it for lung cancer and things like that. But they gave me Keytruda. Hopefully it'll work a little bit better for me. They did not give the other person Keytruda because she'd been on it before and it did not help her. So they thought, why do this? Why put you through that? So the idea is to sort of attack the cancer from two different or using two different molecules on the cancer, which is what the clinical trial drug does. And then the Keytruda attacks another type of molecule. So kind of giving me another chance at fighting the cancer on a different level. So yeah, potentially it could be 2 years, and we're about 9 months into it.
And I guess it's your choice to stop if you want.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the doctors. I mean, if there's something life-threatening, I've developed some heart issues. They're not 100% sure that they've come from the drugs I am. And so they're kind of watching it. I mean, it hasn't done any kind of major damage yet. And they're just making sure that it doesn't. So if it ever got to that point, they would probably take me off it. But yeah, you certainly have the option to say, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And then maybe they'd find something else that they could try. And that there's always, as my doctor says, there's always another tool in the toolbox and that. So, but you don't know if they'll work. I mean, most clinical trials, about 90%, don't work. They don't have any effect at all. So you're looking at a very small group of drugs for any disease, not just cancer, but for any disease. About 90% of clinical trial drugs don't have any effect on the patients.
And then what about alternative treatments? Have you looked into that?
I have, and there's been a lot of things that have been suggested. And like one of the things was vitamin C infusions. And I thought, oh, that's, okay, heavy dose vitamin C. But then when I talked to the oncology pharmacist, she was like, yeah, that works. But the downside of that is it'll counteract the drugs that you're on. So it'll basically, yes, it'd help you feel better, but it'll basically all the good that these drugs that we're giving you are doing, it'll take those and stop it. So it's like, well, okay, that doesn't make sense. I mean, so there's always kind of a give and take. Yes, you could do that, but here's the downside of it. And I'd always tell people, investigate the heck out of that stuff. I mean, it's been suggested that I try ionized water, to the idea being that, the pH level in our bodies, the more alkaline we can make it, the less chance the cancer will have to grow. And in a way that's true, but then you realize that your body has a built-in mechanism that keeps your blood at about 7. So 7 is kind of the middle for if you're looking at acidic versus alkaline. 7 is sort of the middle. So anything over 7 would be more alkaline. Anything under that would be more acidic. But your body has a built-in mechanism that keeps your blood at about 7.35 to 7.45. So you can drink all the, alkaline water you want. It's not going to prevent your blood from, or the mechanism in your body from preventing keeping the blood right basically between that 7.35 and 7.45. So you there's a lot of gimmicks out there. I mean, I drink lemon water with cayenne pepper. I know that sounds disgusting, but I drink that every morning, to kind of get the toxins out of my body. And cayenne pepper helps with enlarging or opening up your blood vessels and things like that. So there are certain things that I do. I have a shake every morning with all kinds of organic fruits and vegetables in it. So I do some of that stuff, but a lot of it is, like the machine to ionize your water. Those cost between $1,000 and $8,000. And in all honesty, they don't really work. So the companies will tell you they do, but the research that I've done and the medical people that I've talked to are like, it's just a waste of your money.
Mm-hmm. And then what about meditation or exercise or, along those lines?
Yeah. It's funny being an athlete my entire life. When I lost my leg, it's really being in a wheelchair stinks. I mean, I can't stand it. I mean, I do push-ups on the stairs now with my one leg, because getting down on the ground, getting down is not too hard. Getting up is a lot harder when you only have one leg. And so I do things. I do push-ups. I spend probably an hour, excuse me, every day in prayer. I've met so many people through podcasts, through, my sort of journey through cancer. There's a lot of people that ask me to pray for them and things like that. So that kind of makes me feel like I have a purpose, like, yeah, this sucks, but this suck is helping other people because I'm praying for them or thinking about them or, talking to them on the phone or whatever it is. So yeah, I don't meditate. I probably should, because, my mind's going a million miles a minute. So it'd probably be a good thing for me. But I mean, I sort of do other things that sort of center me and get me, to a quiet place.
Mm-hmm. And what about your mindset? Do you think about, because I remember talking to one lady and she would think about like the cancer just leaving her body.
Yeah. I mean, I do. I mean, I sort of picture, and it's easy to do because, my doctor will show me my CAT scans and, it's like, well, here's your lungs and here are the tumors inside. So, you have a visual in your mind about what this looks like. And, you go and you have treatment and you think, okay, here's, that drug is getting in there and it's shrinking that tumor and stuff like that. And I have a CAT scan every 6 weeks that's part of the trial to determine the progress. I'll have one actually on Monday. And, I always think of something positive. That's one thing I learned when I was in high school and I had knee surgery, that your brain likes the status quo. If everything's good, your brain's good. But if the only way you're going to grow, the only way you're going to get better, the only way you're going to sort of push yourself is to get out of those comfort zones. But when you do that, then your brain starts kicking in and be like, it's kind of like if you decided you woke up this morning and said, I want to go skydiving. I mean, think about what probably your brain would start telling you. I don't know if you want to do that. The parachute may not open or the plane might crash. There's all these negative things that your brain puts into your thoughts. And if you don't control those, if you don't flip that and say, yeah, that possibly could happen, but chances are it's not going to. And this is something I have a passion for, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. That's the only way you're going to grow. And you don't want to be that person at the end of your life that kind of looks back and was like, I never did anything. I never found the purpose that I was put here for and lived it. And those are always the people at the end of their life that, I want another day, or I want another month, or I want another. Well, sorry, you don't get that. I mean, that I always sort of kid that, that decision's made way above my pay grade in that. So, when it's your time, it's your time. But why not spend that time doing things that scare you? Because what's the worst that could happen? You could win or you could learn. And people are like, no, you can win or you can lose. It's like, well, if that's the way you want to look at it, that's true. But I look at it like you can learn. Even if you fail, can you learn something? Can you take what you learned from, I started a business and it failed. Did you learn something? Yeah. Well, can you start another business over here now based on what you learned? Probably, but that's up to you. And I would just tell people, don't sit in that comfort zone, because that comfort zone is never going to make you grow. It's never going to make you the kind of person that you potentially could be.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So what motivated you to write a book?
So the book was really born out of two conversations I had. One was with a former basketball player who had moved to Colorado with her boyfriend. And my wife and I had dinner with him a couple times. And I remember saying to her, I'm saying, I'm excited that you're living here and I can kind of watch you find and live your purpose. And she got real quiet for a while. And then she looked at me and she's like, well, Coach, what do you think my purpose is? I said, I have no idea what your purpose is. That's what your life should be about. Your life should be about finding that purpose, looking for that purpose. And then once you find it, living it. So that was one conversation. And then I had a young college student who connected with me on LinkedIn who wanted to know what I thought were the most important things he should know to not only be successful in business or in his job, but in life as well. And I didn't want to give him the, get up early, work hard, help others kind of stuff. Not that those aren't important. They are. They're incredibly important. But I wanted to, I guess, go deeper, kind of get into his soul. So I took some time before I responded and I wrote some notes down. And eventually I had these 10 principles and I felt comfortable enough with them to send them to him. And then I sort of stepped back and I was like, well, I've got a life story that fits under this principle, or I know somebody whose life emulates that principle. And literally, when I had my leg amputated in April of last year and I started chemotherapy in June, so during that 3-month period, I literally sat down at the computer and I started to build stories underneath those principles that I'd sent to that young man. And that's really kind of how sustainable excellence, the 10 principles to leading your uncommon and extraordinary life, came about.
Yeah, so someone helped motivate you to write it all out. So that's how it all started. Beautiful.
Yeah, it was great. And, I before, we started talking, I was telling you about how when it was released, I was like, I got to sell books. And excuse me, I had an author in the UK who said to me, no, Terry, your job is to help people, not to sell books. If you help people, your books will sell themselves. And I was so glad that he sort of, slapped me back into reality, so to speak, because I didn't write the book to get famous. I didn't write the book to make money, but I did have it. I had an 87-year-old man who bought the book, read it, and then contacted me and said, you know what, if I would have had these principles when I was younger, I would have had a much better life. And, when you get that sort of validation, it makes you feel like you did the right thing by writing the book.
Do you want to share the principles?
Or some I'll share a couple with you. Because I have one that kind of resonates with me all the time because I did it. And it's this. One of the chapters is titled that most people think with their fears and their insecurities instead of using their minds. And I know I've done that, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that if you have a passion for something in your heart, but it scares you, go ahead and do it. But I know I've wanted to do things and I've been scared or I've been uncomfortable or insecure and I've not done them. And I don't know if they were a big deal or not, but who knows if somebody, this is your purpose in life, but it scares you, so you're not going to do it. Well, that would be a shame when you got to the end of your life and you realized, yeah, that was probably what I was supposed to do, but it scared me. So I was too chicken to go ahead and do that. So that's a big one for me. Another one that I have is you are the person that you're looking to become. So, we kind of all have this idea in our minds of, for me, I want to be a policeman. I saw that in my mind. I wanted to do that. That was my passion. But yet, I had my father in my way. There were a lot of obstacles. Now, I could have just said, okay, I'll stay in business and do that. But the person I wanted to be, I wasn't there yet. I wasn't that person yet. But if I would have quit or if I would have stopped, I never would have been that person. So, if you see yourself, and I always, that's something else. If you can see yourself doing whatever it is you want to do, or whatever that purpose is, then there's a good chance you can accomplish it. But if you can't see that in your mind's eye, then there's also a pretty good chance you won't accomplish that either. You have to be able to see yourself doing that. And then one of the other chapters I wrote about was listening, and not listening to respond, but listening to understand. And that was something I learned when I was a negotiator. As a policeman, we're usually one-on-one, or, we're with a person and we can see visual clues. If you start balling up your fists or, kind of looking around and stuff like that, well, maybe you're going to run or maybe you're going to fight me. Well, I can see that and I can do something. I can handcuff you. I can sit you down. I can put you in the back of the car, whatever is appropriate to mitigate that. But as a negotiator, we weren't with the person. So, they could be a block away and we're talking to them on a phone, or we're talking to them through a door or something like that. So I can't see anything that's going on. So we had to figure things out based on what people were saying, what they weren't saying, and how they were saying it. And so we got good at listening to understand as opposed to listening to reply.
Yeah, I think that's like a very good lesson to teach people, because a lot of times when we really, like you say, you're not listening to what the person's saying to you because you're thinking, what do I want to say next? And yeah, I mean, all of us are guilty of that. And I feel like the older you get, the more you realize, yes, I need to listen. I miss really important stuff because I felt like I needed to think about something while they were talking. And that is something I think comes with experience and age. So
Yeah, and I mean, you look where we are today as a country, and we're just screaming at each other. And if you're screaming at me and I'm screaming at you, I can't understand what you're saying, and you can't understand what I'm saying. So if we ever got to the point where we could just be quiet and listen to what you were saying, but listening to understand, why is she saying that? Why is Lainey saying this, and where is she coming from when she's saying it? We could accomplish so much in this country if we would just do that, but we're just not there yet.
Yeah. And another thing I feel like we need to, there's so many things, but like when you look at another person, like whatever's happening in front of you, that is the most important thing at that moment. And you need to listen and understand, and not be, thinking whatever's going on in your mind, or what, you really need to come to understand the other person and where their perspective is.
And you do. And, and I think I sort of alluded to that when I was telling you, when I was a policeman, I may be here investigating your car accident, which to you is the most horrible thing that's happened to you all year. And to me, it's the third car accident of the day, and it's really not that big of a deal. But I need to remember your perspective on this. It's like, come on, lady, give me your driver's license and your insurance. I got to fill out this form. Have a nice day. No, this scared you. I mean, you were frightened when this happened. This has been the most traumatic thing that's happened to you all year. Good cops will remember that. Good cops will realize that, while I realize this is not a big deal, to you, it's a huge deal. And I need to be cognizant of that. And I need to, validate your feelings. I understand you're upset, ma'am. Why don't you sit down? I got to deal with you as much as I have to deal with the two cars that hit each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then also in regards to choices, or like, conquering your fear, it's just worth it to go and try and do what you're thinking of, because you find out, well, that isn't what I thought it was going to be. This isn't the perfect thing, but at least you found out, and now you can go make another choice for yourself. So I think people are afraid to take that risk, or, they're worried that it's not going to work out. Well, like you said, you learned. I love that question. You said, well, did you learn? And the most important thing I think in life is the experiences that we have, and then the love that we are, engaging in, either giving or receiving. Those are the most important things. And so I'm sure your principals go over a lot of this, but I do think that from when kids are really little, that we really need to enforce these things so people have a sense of that they're not afraid to go after things that they want to do and follow their passions. And if it doesn't work out, then you can try something different. And I think we need to instill that from when people are really young.
We do, because if you think about it, we reward winners. We don't reward failures, and in a way, failure probably is a better teacher than winning is. And so, if everybody's a winner and everybody gets a trophy, so nobody loses, well, then you lose that lesson. You miss that lesson by, what, did I give this everything I had? No, I didn't practice as hard as I should have, right? Well, maybe you learn that, and maybe you need to kind of, go back at that in a different perspective. And one of the chapters in my book is about failing, and failing often, especially when you're young, because failure teaches you so many great lessons. It sucks. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't think anybody sets out to fail, but when it happens, we're like, oh, I'm no good. Well, if that's the attitude you take, you probably aren't. But if you take the attitude of, what did I learn? What did I learn from this that I can apply to make me a better person, that I can apply to making, another job or another venture successful? That's the key. That's where maturity comes in, and you realize that, hey, you know what? I failed. Who cares? And that's just it. It's kind of like the bullying that, everybody's experiencing. You hear about it in schools all the time. Bullying only works if I own that. If you look at me and say, hey, your ears are really big, ha ha, I'm making fun of you. Well, that only hurts me if I take that in and internalize it. If I don't really care, okay, Lainey said my ears are big. I don't care what Lainey says. That only works if you own it. So stop owning all that garbage. And you really screwed up that business. Yeah, made a mistake. Yeah, I learned some stuff. I'm going to try this over here. It only matters if you internalize that stuff.
So how do you think we would teach young children, that to instill that in them?
I mean, I think a lot of it is we got to let them fail and realize that, it's okay. But it also doesn't mean you get a trophy. It doesn't mean it's like, what could you have done? And I think one of the things we did as a SWAT team after every call up, and it didn't matter if we were out there for 16 hours straight or whatever, we debriefed. What went right, what went wrong, what can we do better the next time? Same thing with the negotiators. I mean, we all did it as one big SWAT team, but our next training, what went right, what went wrong, what can we do better? I think maybe we need to start doing that with the kids, and put the responsibility on. And I'm not saying, a 3-year-old needs to do this, but you didn't do well, or you didn't, and it doesn't have to be, I talk sports because it's what I know, but you didn't make the band, or you didn't get the part you wanted in the play, or whatever it is, or you didn't get the job you wanted. Well, why do you think that is? And, get them to start thinking about things they can do to improve themselves, instead of, all these helicopter parents that I got to live my life for my kids. Let your kid screw up. Let your kid fail. Let your kid make mistakes, because that's the only way they're going to learn and the only way they're going to grow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then don't harp on the mistake. Like, don't make them feel bad about that. And also, I think to teach them that sometimes when things don't work out, it's like the universe maybe giving you a positive thing and saying that wasn't right at that moment in time. There's more options. So there's another choice somewhere else. So
don't think like it's the end of the world.
Exactly.
It's not. I mean, again, it goes back to, for me as a policeman, it's the third accident of the day, not a big deal. For you, it's the worst thing that's happened to you all year. It's all perspective. It's all how you look at it. And if you think this is the worst thing that's ever happened to you, well, yeah, it's probably going to limit you on what you do. It may limit you on taking a chance the next time. Don't let it limit you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Great advice. Thank you for sharing so much. I like to ask people, what do you think humanity needs to work on to make our world a better place?
I think you used the word a little while ago, and that word is love. I think we've got to put more love. We've got to care about each other. I look back, I'm old enough, that there were books written about World War II that I read and things like that. And Tom Brokaw, former newscaster, wrote a book that he called The Greatest Generation. And it was about all the men and the women that, when America was attacked during World War II, said, how can I help? What can I do? How can I make a difference? And I'm not saying this generation is like this, but in a lot of ways, I've seen it. It's all about me. What's in it for me? And if I don't get something out of it, then I'm not going to do it. And you contrast the greatest generation of how can I help with what's in it for me, and you kind of realize where we are as a society. I think we need to move more towards the center of, how can I make a difference in this world? And whether that's following my purpose or it's helping other people follow their purpose and live their purpose, I think we've got to do that. We've got to stop saying, well, if I don't benefit from it, I'm not going to get involved in it. No, we've got to get together where this is all about us, not about us individually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. Beautiful. Well, thank you, Terry. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me today to explain, a lot about you and what you're going through. And I hope that everything works out for you and that you'll kick it and you'll be great. And thank you for writing that book, because I'm sure it's going to help so many people.
Well, thank you, Lainey, for having me on. It's, it's people like you that give folks like me a forum. And, hopefully between the two of us and our conversation today, we're going to make a difference in somebody's life today.
And how do people look you up or find out more information?
So I have a website called Motivational Check. So motivationalcheck.com. I put up a new thought for the day every day. I put up the Monday morning motivational message, which are videos or stories, but they're always short. I realize people are busy. If you need a quick hit of motivation or inspiration, go to motivationalcheck.com. It has my social media sites. It has the way to get to my book through Amazon and stuff like that. So motivationalcheck.com should get you to me.
All right. Thank you. I wish you well.
Thank you. You take care of yourself.
All right. Take care, Terry.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.